I would say that's an unwavering trust, and that has been reaffirmed also in every conversation we have across the Atlantic, in the bilateral meeting with Secretary of State Marco Rubio back in October. If you remember the public statements at that moment, the Black Sea was the central point of the statements coming from Washington after the meeting, something that we discussed again in our phone conversation in April. And also yesterday I've spoken with the US Ambassador to NATO, because of course we are preparing, as the President has mentioned in the morning, the NATO meeting on the Black Sea happening in June. Now, another aspect that I want to mention, if we are to speak of the region, especially as the theme of today is connected with the security of the Western Balkans as well, Romania has the presidency of the Central European Initiative, and one of our focuses is around the security in terms of hybrid threats. And there is no surprise why we believe that it needs to be the case. Romania is among the countries on the eastern flank, the country that has had the most illegal entries into our airspace, and for us this means not just to protect our territory, the eastern flank, but also specifically the investment and the focus that we need on the most sensitive parts, which is the Danube and the Black Sea. And we also need to understand, and again here I celebrate the involvement of Germany in today's conversation and talks, that if we speak about the Black Sea and the Danube Delta, then we need to make sure that it is protected now, and there's a certainty of it being safe in the future as well, because where the Danube flows into the Black Sea is something that affects all countries across the Danube, and we have a common shared direct interest in that, not just from a commercial point of view, an environment point of view, but especially the priority given to the region as a whole. Now, also, because we are living in times of overlapping crises, overlapping conflicts, we also see that whatever is difficult and the challenge here also becomes a lesson and a know-how that we can share. Our demining activities done together with Turkey, Bulgaria, Canada has also had its contribution, and UK in the common efforts here, are now relevant in terms of the know-how that we have achieved also at the diplomatic level of how we coordinate among countries for what we are discussing in the diplomatic coalitions on reopening the Strait of Hormuz. The President has also mentioned the one initiated by France and UK, and the State Department of the United States is also leading a diplomatic common effort to make sure we have the coordination at the diplomatic level for the steps ahead. Specifically this week we have a conversation at United Nations Security Council for a resolution initiated by Bahrain to make sure we have the international law and the international frame in place for common actions once ceasefire final peace agreement is achieved, so we make sure that the Strait of Hormuz is again free, protected, and that, to be very frank, in terms of direct benefits for our citizens, allows us in time to make sure the prices are lowered again. And something very important across the world when we're looking at the Strait of Hormuz, but again this was the case in a way for previous experiences in the Black Sea as well, is that we allow for the free passage on maritime lanes. Because once this is put under question in one place of the world, it creates a very dangerous precedent that other countries might use in different places of the world. And I go back to the initial experience of the Black Sea, because I think we tend to take for granted what we have achieved in the process, and specifically the solidarity lanes, which were diplomatic success, which were a security effort that allowed for the flow of cereals from Ukraine to the world from the solidarity lanes on the Black Sea, and that again is something that is relevant in current conversations where we need to achieve similar freedom of temporary freedom of passage, then to make sure we have it fully. Now, what we're going to discuss through the day tomorrow, what the leaders are going to discuss tomorrow is, of course, in preparation of this NATO summit in Ankara, but in coordination with that, of course, we need to increase our regional initiatives, we need to increase our overall coordination. In our case, we have now achieved a trilateral agreement between Romania, Moldova, and Ukraine on cyber resilience, and we believe this to be increasingly relevant. That is why also in October we're going to host here in Bucharest interest, the Hybrid Threat Symposium among allies, because we want to make sure that we have a common sharing on the risk and threat analysis, but also that we increase our coordinated response. And we need to do that with regional formats such as the Odessa Trilateral on cybersecurity. We need to do that within NATO, but as the President has mentioned at the beginning of the day, Romania stands as a strong supporter of a more integrated approach between the efforts at the European Union level, NATO, and regional efforts. And also we want to extend initiatives such as the Democracy Shield, such as cybersecurity projects and resources across the region, to have them available for the Western Balkans and other regions as well. Because again, we believe we are in a moment where we face new risks, we face adversaries that are very fast in upgrading their instruments, their know-how, the resources that they have, and that means that we cannot answer to that just at a country level, because that would mean we do not use the power that we have, which is a collective power of know-how, analysis, and of course the innovation of the private space. And with the innovation of the private companies is what I will close with, because although this is a responsibility of governments, this is a responsibility of states, of NATO, European Union, of public officials, what we need to build up in terms of resilience, deterrence, in terms of coordinated analysis capacity, coordinated response, also requires, innovation also requires a faster collaborations with those that are developing these resources. And I think that again is extremely important, especially as topics such as energy, transportation, global food prices that depend on the capacity to have this maritime security and this freedom of passage all over the world are connected with each other, and the potential risks in the future are very serious, as everything that happens to fail at the security level actually transfers immediately and sometimes for medium or long term into the everyday prices and to the competitivity and the standard of life. And that, if it's not fixed properly and in due time, if citizens do not see a coordinated proper reaction in terms of policy, also will be used in disinformation campaigns. So there's a virtuous spiral that we need to have an effort to make sure that spiral, that connections are now turned into the right direction of fixing what we do together in terms of upgrading our response, our analysis. The Black Sea is a safe sea at the moment, and I think that is absolutely essential, and that's why I'm looking forward to the conversation that we're going to have in the panel, because the Black Sea is a safe sea because we keep it safe together now and in the future. Thank you.
Distinguished Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to present my heartfelt thanks to the New Strategy Center for giving this opportunity to join you today at this panel. It's a very timely one. There are always references to NATO summit, but I'll add another one, which is also directly related to Black Sea security, COP31. We will also host this one. When we say security and Black Sea, maybe at the beginning we should make the wider definition of Black Sea region and wider definition of what means Black Sea security. And I'll just, with your permission, distinguished Minister, I will add another dimension, as you mentioned about Black Sea. It's not only a sea, it's a basin. And this is why we have a Black Sea Economic Cooperation Organization based in Istanbul. This is why Albania, Greece, they are all members of it, because it's a wider region. And today anything happens in Black Sea has enormous impacts on the security. It's not only European security, it doesn't have impacts on European security architecture, but also geopolitical and economic dynamics of a wider region. It is, if we look at the map, we could understand it better. This is Black Sea, and let's make a projection going down and going up from the Black Sea. Going up is Ukraine and also the Arctic, where there are so many struggles now, who will control the trade routes. When you go this side, 3C projects, and when you go down there, what you see is what's happening in Caucasia, what's happening, you just make the projection, Black Sea is coming like that, and what you see, Syria, Yemen, Somali, Sudan, and whatever happens in the Black Sea region will have so many effects on all the security system in geopolitical terms. So when the war started in Ukraine, all of a sudden the wheat prices increased 37%, and the number of the people dying in West Africa from hunger increased all of a sudden. And this is why Turkey became part of the grain deal, and this is why we did it together with our allies and with our partners. And whenever we talk about security of Black Sea, any change in the degree of the Black Sea will have enormous changes in Mediterranean waters. And this is valid for all kinds of security items that we can count. If we say it in a simple way, there are four main security items. One is military security. This is very important. We now concentrated on that due to the conditions, due to the wars. Second, which the day after part of will be more important, and countries like Romania and Turkey will concentrate more with an eye of regional ownership, economic security. And third one is energy security. But when we say energy and data, they are the new formula. You need to collect data, you should have fiber optic cables, you should have telecommunication connections in a secure way, like we are having railroads and also having some, energy pipelines. We should have telecommunication pipelines to be very secure. And these are the new areas that we need to work on in the scope of Green Deal, digitalization, and using AI. And with this understanding, this timely panel, this timely arrangement, Black Sea and Balkan Security Forum, will be helpful to elaborate and to have some more ideas on all those issues. One of the important concepts is connectivity, and connectivity in these items is also very important. Turkey and EU are working on how to have more connectivity projects, and we are also working together with other neighboring countries. But connectivity is not a linear thing. It is bringing some kind of better welfare and stability in the region. And when I say, and I talk about the day after the war, we need to concentrate on that. This is why my minister goes to Syria together with President Zelensky and talk what we can do. And connectivity is not a one line going from one port to the other. It should have north-south, east-west, west-east connections. And we shouldn't also forget Iran is also another Black Sea country because of being connected to Caucasia. And with this understanding, two stable countries, two allies, Romania and Turkey, they have a lot to say, and we will try to share all these sayings with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we will turn over to the video message.
Excellencies, colleagues, friends, it's a great honor to address you today, but I have to start, of course, with an apology. I would have preferred to be with you in Bucharest today. Unfortunately, I could not make it. I very much regret this, because the Black Sea and Balkans Security Forum has become a key event to discuss issues which are of highest importance to the region, to the security of the region, and this means the security of Europe. Now, let me make 5 remarks. And this is already my first remark. While Germany is not a littoral state to the Black Sea, of course, we consider the Black Sea region to be one of the most strategically important areas for the future security, stability, and prosperity of Europe. We do know very well what happens in the Black Sea does not stay there. it directly affects our continent and the European Union as a whole. That is why we, the German government, are and will stay engaged. Of course, the same goes and has to go the other way around. What happens in the Baltic Sea, where Germany is a littoral state, does not stay there. All Europeans have to be engaged. And they are. Nobody knows this better than our Ukrainian friends, who closely analyze what Russia is doing in both regions, north and south, simultaneously to draw the appropriate lessons from it. My second remark. Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine is not limited to the borders of Ukraine. Not just because of Russia's threatening all Europe, all NATO, like we heard it again this Saturday from the Red Square. No, this is already very concrete. Russian drones violate Moldovan, Romanian, Polish, and other airspaces on a regular basis. In the Baltic Sea, the Black Sea, and elsewhere, the Russian shadow fleet poses a threat to our common European security and maritime safety. Hence, we are, as we speak today, working in the EU on increasing the sanction pressure on the shadow fleet to further limit Russian oil revenues by following a whole-of-route approach, sanctioning not only the vessels themselves, but the owners, managers, and other entities allowing the shadow fleet to function. We are convinced that there is only one strategy to stop this war. Maximum support for Ukraine to survive and maximum pressure on Russia. We should not and will not lose patience as the security of Europe is at stake. This leads me to my third remark. In the spirit of European unity, we published a year ago the first comprehensive European Union Black Sea strategy. By this, we have created a framework that combines security, connectivity, economic resilience, energy diversification, infrastructure development, and biodiversity. Now, it is about implementation. Bulgaria and Romania are already playing a leading role in implementation. Through consistent diplomatic engagement and practical initiatives, Romania since years rightly has been driving force within the EU in bringing the Black Sea back to, I would say, where it belongs, to the center of European strategic thinking. And as an important NATO ally, close EU partner, and a direct neighbor to the conflict zone, Romania has demonstrated remarkable resilience. And I would like to make this point as a German. Romania's investments in regional connectivity, port infrastructure, energy security, and military preparedness are not only a national or regional contribution, they are to the benefit of us all in Europe. Bulgaria, likewise, through its leadership in the Black Sea and Economic Cooperation, BSEC has actively contributed to increased regional coordination and understanding. And I'm convinced that without engagement and cooperation with Turkey, none of our ambitious EU plans in the region will be realized. On the contrary, Turkey will continue playing a very central role in the Black Sea, and we look forward to an important NATO summit in Turkey in a few months, in very challenging times. Fourthly, back to Ukraine. At the center of all our efforts in the Black Sea stands supporting Ukraine in its ongoing fight against Russian aggression. Our support for Ukraine must remain unwavering politically, economically, financially, militarily, and strategically. Supporting Ukraine also means preserving its access to the world economy and sustaining global food security. The other war at our borders in the Middle East and Gulf shows how important it is that we get used to combine the needs in all areas of security, including energy security, food security, digital security, and so on. This is why the EU solidarity lanes have been such an important success story. They have shown what European coordination can achieve, even under pressure. In this and elsewhere, the Republic of Moldova has proven to be a partner we can rely on. While being affected by the Russian aggression against Ukraine itself, especially in the energy sector, Moldova has not wavered once. Given its contributions, Moldova clearly deserves that we also keep up our support for the European path that Moldova has so decisively chosen. Finally, a word on EU accession. The recent elections in Hungary have created a new momentum for progress in EU accession process of Ukraine and Moldova, which has to remain merit-based. I'm hopeful that we will see the opening of all negotiation clusters with Ukraine and Moldova very soon. Here I would like to add a general remark. We do have to refocus in the EU on the accession process properly. Be it Ukraine, the Western Balkans, or other parts of our continent. In the end, this is and will be essential to the credibility of the EU and to the credibility of Europe as a whole. So, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, let me conclude. A stronger, more unified Black Sea means a stronger Europe. And building a stronger Europe means standing firmly with those who defend freedom, sovereignty, and peace. Thank you very much.
A lot of food for thought to chew on. Minister ČOIU, if I may ask you a twofold question, actually. You have mentioned hybrid threats in the Black Sea also in your statement. We see cyber threats, disinformation campaigns, sabotage attacks on our critical infrastructure, undersea cables, drilling platforms, cyber attacks on power grids, GPS spoofing, etc. The list is long. If I understood you correctly in your remarks, you put a focus on the cyber threat domain as well as the energy security. This would be my first question, sort of with regards to the priorities, and then if we narrow it down a bit, what should the EU and then the hub prioritize? We have not spoken about the hub yet. I mean, this is sort of the project that you have asked for several times to move from a concept into a reality. Then what should be done first?
So thank you for the question. First of all, we do not have the luxury to choose. When it comes to the Black Sea, we do have to keep all these areas in our priorities. The energy, as you have mentioned, the undersea cables, because they are essential to digital connectivity. Of course, the solidarity lanes have been mentioned, and commercial routes. And for us, of course, the environment component of the Danube Delta is also essential. But security hub at the Black Sea actually has an advanced version. We are discussing now among institutions, in our cases, together with the Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Defense, and together with our counterparts from Bulgaria, because there are some things that are clear. First of all, it needs to be complementary to the military effort that is done within NATO, the demining activities. So it's not a military concept, it is a security concept. And first of all, it's the situational awareness, to be able, through the hub, that we have a coordinated situational awareness that is essential to be able to protect key infrastructure, be it undersea, or of course we're referring to the investments already there, to be able to have a coordinated team that has the proper input for the European Union decision and other partners, to be able to have an engagement, a coordinated engagement from the European Union through the hub with Turkey as well on what we're doing. And this is a conversation we're having often with Mr. Hakan Fidan, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, to be able to make sure the hub has a component that is inclusive for the countries at the Black Sea outside the European Union, as it is a shared objective to keep the Black Sea safe. And in that sense, also we need to be direct on a topic that is important, which is the budget itself. Of course, we are speaking of a mixed budget. From a national perspective, we have started identifying part of the logistics that can be put into place, but we have a clear conversation with the European Commission of the fact that the security hub at the Black Sea, the maritime security hub at the Black Sea needs to be a priority in the next budget allocation. And in that sense, we have seen amendments and statements coming from the European Parliament, and European Parliament members from Romania have hosted conversations, have drafted amendments to the future budget. So we see a coordinated political approach in that direction.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, do not worry. There's going to be an entire panel on the question of the EU Black Sea strategy, so there will be more time to discuss that. We will move on. My next question goes to you, Excellency. Well, not least because of its role as guardian of the Montreux Convention. Turkey is, of course, central for Black Sea security. As you both have mentioned, past years have seen very successful cooperation, coordination with the other littoral states. I like your image with looking at the map and going up and down. Now I would like to broaden it. Could you elaborate a bit more on what role Ankara sees for non-littoral states? So you briefly spoke about connectivity projects, but sort of what do you expect from them in contributing to security in the Black Sea?
Thank you very much. As a Turkish diplomat, I was proud being in the Turkish Foreign Service as I saw the Montreux Agreement, Montreux Convention. Thanks to it, we didn't have anything in the Black Sea 8 decades. Now, after this aggression, we had all these issues, but the nature of the war would change if we didn't have Montreux Convention. I would like to emphasize that. And now, of course, as I underlined, regional ownership is very important at this stage. Littoral states should own the Black Sea Basin. This is why MCM, together with Bulgaria and Romania, these kind of initiatives are important. For us, we should, what we should do as Turkey, with our allies, with our neighbors, doing the best to hold the diplomatic line in any way and keep signified dialogue channels open. And in the meantime, we would like to keep Ukraine intact in economic terms. While the war is going on, Turkish firms are constructing roads, bridges, and having some good trade. And of course, Romania is one of the most important partners, and other neighboring countries, Moldova, as my dear German colleague mentioned about the importance of Moldova. This part of the region should be in a good, stable way, increasing the welfare of the region. And we, as a NATO member, that is very important for us. One of the main issues to discuss in Ankara be the security in our own region, in the Black Sea region. We need to keep infrastructures intact. We should work together with our allies and littoral states in the Black Sea. And for the future, you know, no military-only solution is sufficient. And as my president mentions, there is in peace there is no loser. We need to work on that, and we'll concentrate on finding peace. It's not an easy task. However, the most important thing, it's not a transition period, it's a transformation period. And in this transformation period, instead of looking for other actors out of the Black Sea region, what they will do, we shouldn't look at that, and then we should, of course, cooperate with them. But on the other hand, we need to make the line more strong. Cooperation in all fields, on energy, on economy, on security issues, and we should build up deterrence capacity higher for future arrangements. And here I believe as two neighboring countries in a way through the sea, we will work a lot together with Romania. But on the other hand, we need to prepare the day after arrangements. Today we are talking about all security issues. We need to work on people-to-people relations as well. This is why we are having so many contacts with Ukrainian people in economic field, in cultural field. And I believe altogether there should be a collective effort while having some kind of a deterrence power to build up. We need to have a better economic environment based on keeping supply and value chains intact for the future of the region, but also for today's arrangements.
Okay, thank you very much. Then maybe because you spoke about the day after, I think we need to briefly touch upon the question on how to end this war. This weekend the peace negotiations came back into the headlines, of course, with Vladimir Putin talking about, quote, this matter may be coming to an end, bringing in former Chancellor Gerhard Schröder as a mediator. Given Russia's maximalist demands and repeated failures of negotiations in the past, and I mean there have been many very good initiatives, what is your take? What could be new diplomatic mechanisms or incentives to break this deadlock? And how can the international community ensure that negotiations are not just another stalling technique by Moscow? Yeah, happy to start.
You know, the Russia will exist there, and then it will be there geostrategically. We should also keep this in mind. And the solution should be a genuine solution altogether. We need to work on. But how and when the war will end depends on the continued cooperation, solidarity between the Black Sea countries. And here, of course, I will underline what I told just now, and we are trying to keep the dialogue. This is why we are not, as Turkey, trying to solve and be part of, negotiations, but to find the ground for the actors to find a solution. And this is our effort. This is why, exchange of prisoners deal. This is why even the grain deal was part of it, in order to create some kind of a stability which will be helpful to all the parties. And at this stage, Turkey has an advantage. We are in touch with Ukrainian authorities. We are having contacts with the Russian authorities. But when we are doing this, we are doing it in the scope of NATO, being a NATO member. We are doing it through our arrangements and engagements with the EU. And we are doing it for the sake of our own people, but the regional security and stability. And I was also dealing with this, as I mentioned to you, Black Sea Economic Cooperation Organization. There were very fierce discussions during the meetings, but at the end of the day, we managed to prepare some kind of an economic agenda after so many years, because if we can convince all the parties, of course, Turkey is always supportive of territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine, and Turkey made the warning in 2014. At that time, it wasn't that much sounded in the international community, but we were, as Turkey, mentioning and saying that this wouldn't stay with Crimea. And now we are at a stage. Now how we can turn the table and to have Ukrainian sovereignty, territorial integrity will be guaranteed, but then there will be also a deal all the parties will agree on. And this is, there are some questions, sometimes some actors are more active than they do not work that hard on finding a solution. This is why, again, I'll underline, regional ownership, working together will accelerate the solution, accelerate the peace process. But I cannot give any timeline at this stage. It could be all of a sudden, depending on what's happening on the other corners of the world. It could take some time, but this is why I underline we should be prepared for the day after. When the things are more clear, we should have a strong SME structure in Ukraine. We should have all these lines of supply and value chains to be flexible, lively, and fast. And when we work on these things, it will also accelerate the peaceful solution.
Okay, so I take solidarity between the Black Sea states, regional ownership, that sort of strengthening in the region helps in advantage and in advancing and strengthening the position. Your Excellency, what do you would like to
I fully
add?
agree with the Minister's statements on preparing the economy side of it and the logistical infrastructure part of it. That is why in Romania we have prioritized also European investments in terms of highway connection, in terms of border crossing points with Ukraine as well as with Moldova. My first visit to Ukraine last summer was also the moment where we have launched a new train ticket from Kiev, Chisinau, Bucharest. Of course, that is the result of our colleagues from the railway, train companies and ministries of transportation. But we are continuing to prioritize these types of investments and plans, because it also proves to our citizens as well that there's a direct economic benefit in making sure there's a common priority of the European funding, of this emergence of better logistical connections, because truth being told, we should have done it decades ago, not necessarily because we have the war at the border, but because it is in the strategic interest of Romania and the region to have better road connection, train connections, border passing, energy grid connection, digital cables, and so on. And of course, we're looking forward to the conference for the reconstruction, where the private companies from Romania as well, in partnership with Turkey and international partners, are I think gradually more open to be involved in projects there from a commercial perspective. But of course, this can only be in parallel with what is the essential objective, which is to reach a sustainable peace in Ukraine. And here, two things. I want to say. One is because we have the B9 summit tomorrow. We need to remind ourselves that Romania and Poland have started the B9 summit after Crimea, because we are the countries that have understood immediately that that will pose a threat to us, will pose a threat to the continent, and we need to coordinate. A decade later, the countries that have the most illegal air trespassing, let's put it like that, in our airspace are Romania and Poland. So it is quite clear that if the international community would have had a firmer response back then in terms of sanctions, I mean, not necessarily militarily, then maybe we wouldn't be today in the situation we're in. And of course you cannot change the reaction a decade ago. But I think one of the components was, of course, the general requirement at that point for the volume and the price of the energy coming from Russia, and I think that had an influence on how tough our response in terms of sanctions has been. So that is why now, at this moment in time, I don't think Russia is truly negotiating. I haven't seen necessarily significant signs, decisions. They come to the negotiation table and they, in parallel, send drones over children's hospitals or buses where workers commute. So that is not in itself called authentic presence of the peace negotiations. I think the peace negotiations are going to advance when Russia is going to see forward a scenario where they have no chance of winning. Because I think we need to understand it is not just about Ukraine or the territories in Ukraine. It is a strategic long-term approach from Russia to try to destabilize or create vulnerabilities on the European Union as a whole, on NATO as a whole. So for them, even the continuous pressure generated through the illegal war of aggression on Ukraine, on NATO, on European Union structure is in itself part of what they're looking for. So, but I want to say this at the end. 4 years into the conflict, they've wanted to make NATO weaker. We are hosting the President of Finland tomorrow at B9 because now they're a NATO member. They wanted to make the European Union weaker. We are now having coordinated responses in terms of sanctions, loans, and our diplomatic efforts. So although I think the peace negotiations are going slower than we would have wanted to, I don't think we're going to see a final sustainable peace decision immediately. But I do trust in our collective effort at the diplomatic level and in the resilience of the Ukrainian people and leadership that we will have a peace deal and not the victory of Russia.
Thank you very much. What a statement to end this panel on. I take away talking about new diplomatic initiatives or wondering who could be the person as a mediator is secondary, and as Geza van Gaia put it earlier, we need this one strategy of unwavering support for Ukraine and putting pressure on Russia. With this, I really want to thank you very much. I wish everyone a fruitful and inspiring continuation of this conference. Please join me in thanking a wonderful distinguished guest. Thank you.